Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Kent Ritter. Thanks for being on the show, Kent.
Thanks for having me, Whitney. I'm excited to be here, man.
It's exciting to have you on the show. We've known each other for a few years now, and it's been incredible just to watch the growth and what Kent's been doing, and looking forward to getting into that on the show. But he serves as a managing director at the multifamily private equity firm Birge Held Asset Management. In his role, Kent leads the private select portfolio, which has a unique strategy of leveraging Birge Held's scale and the latest technology to create outsized returns from acquiring and improving mismanaged, undercapitalized, and undervalued properties. He's the host of the Ritter-owned real estate podcast and YouTube channel, where he provides impactful interviews and practical tips for investors. Kent has achieved financial freedom and now is on a mission to empower others to do the same through multifamily investing. Kent, welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure to catch up. We've been talking for a while before the show, just because we hadn't got to talk in a good while. But great to have you back and actually see you in person, or have you on the show. And
I know, right?
Give the listeners a little bit about maybe your focus right now, and Birge Held and what you've been up to. And let's dive into some of your unique abilities that we can learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. And one, I just want to say, man, you nailed that bio. Like, it's kind of a tongue twister, and you went right through it. So I think that was a great intro, right?
Well, thank you.
But that's exactly, so some of the things you talked about there are exactly what I've been focusing on. So within Birge Held, so just to give you guys a lay of the land, Birge Held is a large firm. It's been around since 2008. And we have collectively about 15,000 units under management in 10 states. And I actually started with Birge Held as a passive investor back in 2016, when I really started ramping up my real estate career and really started getting into real estate investing and learned about the world of syndication. And I reached out to several sponsors and invested in about 10 deals in 2016. And that was really how I kicked off my career and my education on what this world's all about. And then just over the next 4 years, built a really strong relationship with a lot of the folks at Birge Held. We just really gelled. They were really gracious in opening up their doors and allowing me to kind of behind the curtain to understand what they were doing and why they were doing it. And built a great relationship with one of their principals, Tag Birge, who's become a personal mentor of mine. And then in 2020, really after having some success on my own syndications, that Tag invited me to come on board as a partner and open up a line of business really under their umbrella to be able to really leverage their platform and their scale, and build my own strategy off of that. And so I felt like that was a great opportunity to both learn from folks that have been in real estate for over 30 years and also just see some of the advanced things that they're able to do with the scale that they have. So that's really what I'm focused on now. And we call that the private select portfolio. And we've acquired 3 properties in 2020 under that portfolio. And we've got our 4th under contract right now. And exactly like you heard in the intro, we're focused on really looking for those diamond in the rough properties, right? We're focused on smaller to mid-tier properties in more secondary and tertiary markets, throughout the Midwest, where we're still finding good yields and relatively good value compared to other markets. And we're looking for properties that have a story, right? So I say mismanaged, undercapitalized, and undervalued. So, finding opportunities to buy from mom and pop owners. So 2 of the properties we purchased so far, we purchased from mom and pop owners, and we've been able to really improve management efficiencies, but also just the positioning in the market from a rent standpoint. They were just way under market because they were managing them for occupancy and not to maximize the revenue. So just changing that mindset, taking more of a professional approach, allows us to drive returns without having to go through a heavy value add construction phase, right? We're doing very minimal things in the unit. We're just, fixing them up. We're adding maybe some flooring, some countertops, but we're not tearing things down to the studs. And I think that helps us manage our risk. So we're finding these management inefficiencies. And then the other property was kind of on the other end, which I thought was interesting. It was actually a large institutional owner, but this was kind of the black sheep of their portfolio. They just hadn't focused on it. They hadn't really done much with it. And so again, it was a large, sophisticated operator, but they took their eye off the ball on this property, and we were able to come in again and create management efficiencies. This property is like $300 under market rent. And again, just follow the same process. So it's like large institutional owners, mom and pop owners, and we're just kind of finding that sweet spot in the middle.
We've had a couple like that as well. It's like you would think this institution would, manage this property much more efficiently, but it was the black sheep kind of, and was kind of on the back burner. And so there was a lot of value to be had there. You mentioned like smaller to mid-sized properties. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
So to me, that means, let's say, 30 units on the small end. Our smallest property is 30 units, and on the high end, about 150 units and lower. I mean, really, there's a nice no man's land there that we've found where, it's really too big for an individual kind of mom and pop owner to run as well as it could be run, right? I mean, if you're trying to run and own a 30 unit as a side job, you're probably not running it as efficiently as it could from both a revenue and an expense side. And then, getting up to about 150, that's still below where a lot of the big institutional players will look. So there's this nice no man's land that we found that we can play in, where we can be the most sophisticated buyer in the market. And we can leverage our efficiencies and our scale across the entire portfolio to really add value to these properties.
Nice. No, I just wondered because there is a sweet spot there, and in some markets more than others, maybe depending on cost, and the efficiency and whatnot. But, tell me about how you all are finding these properties. I'm sure that's, like the listener right now, they're probably, that's everybody's problem right now, right? Is more than likely deal flow. How'd you find them?
Yeah, so we're implementing a couple of strategies. So one, just tried and true broker relationships. There's nothing better than just building solid relationships with brokers to make sure that you're at the top of their short list when they receive a property. And there's, everybody talks about off-market deals. Like I get tons of deals sent to me, right, to invest in, and every one of them seems to be off-market somehow. Well, I really have not personally in my life, or anyone in Birge Held, actually found that many like true off-market deals. So these guys must be finding them somehow. But I think what people really mean are their pre-market deals. There's a period when the broker gets the deal to when they've completed all of their research and marketing package of 2 to 3 weeks before they actually market the deal, where they're communicating to their short list and saying, hey, we've got this property out here. If you guys want to take this down, you can do it before we get to the market. And we've been able to take advantage of that on really on all 3 of the properties that we've purchased so far. It's been kind of that pre-market situation from good broker relationships. I think the thing that I didn't recognize that has been a huge value to us too is, getting down from that list of, you have all your national brokerages, right? You have your CBREs and your Cushmans, for example, some of the big boys. But there's so many kind of regional and local players. And if you can build relationships with those folks, again, it's just, they don't have the super long list that the national players have, right? They appreciate much more like you coming down and you meeting them in their local market, and they have that localized knowledge. And when you're looking for properties that are similar to what we are for mom and pop owners, typically it's more those local and regional players that are going to have those relationships, folks that have been in the market for 30 years, right? Talking to those owners that are going to get those listings. And so we've really been able to leverage more of those local and regional brokers to send us some great deals.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice right there. No doubt about the broker relationships. Most of our deals have come through nurturing broker relationships, right? And honoring that relationship and doing right by the broker as well. Anytime, every time we possibly can. And so any tips though, before we move on to another thing I know that you're really good at, any tips on nurturing that broker relationship or, making that connection and how you follow up or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? But it takes time. And I think it's about just being intentional with it. But you just need to stay top of mind with them. The best way to do that is to frequently communicate with them, and not waste their time. Right. So if they send you a deal, take a look at it and give them honest feedback. Right away. Don't sit on it. Don't make them follow up with you a couple times to ultimately say, oh yeah, no, we're actually not interested. So I think just be timely with your communication, reach out to them it's just like building a relationship with anyone else, right? Like if you want to be friends with somebody, you've got to reach out and talk with them, right? You've got to communicate with them. And doing it not always when you need something, I think is important. So I try to just, every couple weeks, I try to just kind of go through the rounds and just call and say, hey, just wanted to check in, like once I have the relationship established. I think when you're establishing the relationship, you have to present credibility. So I actually created a brochure for our private select group because it's a different strategy for Birge Held, right? So a lot of these brokers knew Birge Held, but I wanted to introduce them to a different strategy. So I created a kind of a one-page glossy brochure on, here's our market criteria, here's our deal criteria. So essentially saying, look, if you find something that fits in this box, we're going to be a buyer and that we're going to close because you already know we have the track record. So now just kind of open up that box if you're thinking about Birge Held in, and let's see what else fits in there. Right. So I created this kind of nice glossy thing. We did a lot of lunches, a lot of in-persons, this is pre-COVID, handing them out. Because I think that's what makes it easy for brokers. Like you got to make it easy for them. You got to be clear on your criteria, right? On exactly what you're looking for. And then after that, it's just like maintaining a relationship with anybody else. Reach out, call, text, treat them to lunch. Let's get coffee.
Like you said, it's not rocket science, but however, most do not follow up, right? Most people do not follow up.
The follow-up is the huge thing. The follow-up is huge. I mean, just like your investors, you got to be following up with your brokers. And I've done favors for some brokers. I've had brokers say, hey, can you just take a look at this? Can you just underwrite this for me? I just want to make sure like we're in kind of the ballpark, or maybe they've got a bid from somebody else and they want like some counter ammo, things like that. So doing things like that, trying to just add value. And,
a couple of things you mentioned there that I think too, that the listener could just take a hold of and run with too is, this partnership with Birge Held as well. I mean, that just bolstered your credibility in a big way, right? And most of us,
absolutely.
It's like if you can partner with somebody that's been there and done that, you're going to move so much faster, right? But it just helps so much on the credibility piece. That I love this brochure too. Like, take the time to present yourself well. I just mentioned it on a show not too long ago, a few days ago, and I talk about sometimes how, as a police officer, when I was a police officer, I knew that how shiny my buttons were on my uniform, believe it or not, and the crease on my uniform, like that could save my life. Okay. And that seems silly to most people. But when you think about, like, criminals know to look for those things. They know the officers who are squared away and who are slouchy. They know the easy ones, right? They see those things. And so I think about that with investors. I think about that with brokers. I think about that, just in the business, how you present yourself. And I love this brochure, taking the time just to present yourself and your brand well. But I wanted to move on before we run out of time. Kent, I know we could talk about that all day long, but I wanted to get to just how you all are leveraging tech. I know you're really good at that. And I wanted to give you some time for us to discuss, how you're doing that so the listener can think about that also.
Yeah. So this is one of the things I'm most excited about right now. Honestly, we've spent about the past, really, now that I'm thinking about 8 months at Birge Held. Really, we made an intentional decision of, like, we looked around and said, hey, we're behind the 8 ball from where we need to be as a leader in the market from a tech perspective, and especially from like a prop tech perspective, like the technology that we're implementing on our properties. So we made a very, we made a decision that like this needs to be a focus and this needs to be a priority going into 2021. So we spent the last quarter of 2020 really just understanding the market. And I led a lot of this. We developed a tech committee with folks from asset management, property management, IT, accounting, kind of all the people that need to be involved. And we went through just a very thoughtful decision-making process and I think where you have to really start is what problem are you trying to solve? Right. And because I think that part of the problem with prop tech is there's so much out there. Like I just wrote an article and it was posted in Forbes a couple of weeks ago, and it was highlighting some of the investments in prop tech. It's been like a $20 billion industry for the past 2 years. And so you think about all the firms that have popped up, all the different technologies, like how do you wrap your head all around it? Right. And I think you have to start with what problem are you trying to solve? And then what are your requirements? So the problem that we thought was the largest and we wanted to solve was to create a contactless leasing process. And what that means is from when when a prospect comes and interacts with us online or through any of those channels and becomes a lead and can go all the way through the process to signing a lease without ever having to actually physically contact someone or come into contact with someone, right? So we said, okay, that's the problem. We said, okay, what are our requirements? And like one of our big requirements was we need everything to integrate with RealPage because that's our property management system. But you need to come up, what are your requirements? And then that helps you really narrow in so you're not just looking at like the whole world, right? To understand what's out there. And so what we've done is, and we're implementing this on all of the private select properties. The private select properties are really kind of the incubator, if you will, for tech in the firm. And then we're expanding out to the other 15,000 units. We've implemented smart locks on the properties that are Bluetooth enabled and can be controlled via your phone and an app from anywhere in the world. Residents can also use their phone to enter their properties or their units. And then we've layered on top of that a self-guided tour product, which actually allows tenants or prospects, to come in and online, they can sign up for a tour. They can schedule the tour at their own time. And then they can come in and they can tour the property without having to be with a leasing agent or a property manager. So you do it on their own schedule. It's allowed us to expand our leasing hours all the way to 8:00 at night when people are off work. And it's really a cool product because it creates a curated tour on your phone. So as someone shows up to the property, like 15 minutes before their appointment, they receive a one-time code that allows them through their phone to access the property. And they can go to their property and if there's amenities, they can go to the fitness center and the pool, and then they can go to the particular model unit, or if there's a vacant unit, and you can just set all that very easily in the app. And then there's geolocation beacons that exist throughout the property. So as the person's going through the property via their phone, we know where they're at and we've curated the tour. So like when they show up at the pool, it knows they're at the pool and it pops up on their phone. And it's like, welcome to the pool. Here's all the great information about the pool. And it's actually professionally voice recorded. So it's not just reading it. It's
a robot.
It's not just a robot. Yeah. It's someone speaking to them. And it like the idea is if you could have your best leasing agent doing their best pitch on their best day and have that every time. Right. And so that's what we did. We worked with our best leasing agent and said, what really resonates with people about this property? We get that written down, and that's what goes into the app. And so it's really cool because
outside of say the numbers of how many, I would imagine you can show it to more people now, because you can say it, leave it open till 8 p.m. or, you can I'm sure adjust those times probably depending on daylight hours and things like that.
Yeah.
But have you all done any studies for when it's just like, 10 showings with your manager in person versus 10 showings, self-guided, or 100 or, something like that.
Yeah.
Do you know kind of which one is, I guess, working the
more
best?
successful? Yeah.
Right.
I'd say we're gathering that data at this point. We don't have a large enough sample size. I mean, we really went live with the full boat back in March. So
Okay.
on 2 properties. So it really is still kind of in a pilot mode, but we're starting to gather that data now because we got the smart locks in, and then we need to get the self-guided tour in. And then we put cameras on all of our properties so we can have eyes on the properties remotely. And so we're kind of layering all these pieces in. We have them now on a couple properties, and now we're really able to kind of see how it works. And
can you just list out some of the softwares that you're using to do that? I know you have to have smart locks that are, Bluetooth enabled and those things. What are some of the softwares so the listener, their property, they could implement some of this?
Yeah. Well, and even just starting with the smart locks, like smart locks can cost $200 a lock. They can cost $1,200 a lock. It depends on who you go with and what level finish and all that. I mean, we're mainly workforce B and C class housing. So we're going with just a very solid Schlage lock. What's important, I think, is ours are Bluetooth enabled. They're not Wi-Fi. So they're not sitting on a wireless network, right? I think that's great for security. If you think about people being able to hack into them, it extends the battery life considerably of them. So I think, like, for me, the Bluetooth enabled is the way to go. From a software standpoint, we're using to control the locks remotely. We're using a software called Stratus, which was recently purchased by RealPage, and which was one of the major considerations of choosing them was the RealPage integration. Also, they allow you to use any hardware you want versus some groups, they want to sell you their hardware as well. So they require you to use a specific hardware. So Stratus, Tour 24 is the self-guided tour product. And we really approach this from like a best of breed approach versus one company that could do everything. Because there are companies that will do everything I just talked about, but we really said we want the best at what they do, and we'll make them fit together, right? So I just thought Tour 24, that's all they do are tours, and I thought the product was really good, so we chose them. And then we use, for like the virtual leasing, we use RealPage. Then we use DocuSign. So they're actually able to, right after the tour, they're able to have their lease on the phone, sign up for the lease, do all the checks that need to be done, and then sign up via DocuSign. They can sign a lease right there. So those,
nice.
all those pieces coming together. Yeah.
Like that's so valuable, just because you all have done some research, and at least now as a listener starts to do their research, maybe they can start here, and I would still encourage them to look at some others but no, that is awesome. And it's neat how you've automated that. Are there virtual assistants that are helping with that process, or is it mostly you all, because it's so much more minimized now, or is it still the manager on site that's managing most of that? How do you handle that?
Well, so it's still right now the manager on site who's able to just spend. So we have it on a 30 unit in Louisville where we don't have a full-time on-site manager. So for there, it's huge efficiencies for the manager of not having to come and do every showing and do all that. Right now, it's still with the manager. The vision, and we're actually piloting this on 5 properties right now, is a call center model. So centralized communication. So we have 5 properties live on a call center right now, and we've seen fantastic results where like 50% of, so here's this industry statistic like blew my mind, coming from my background as a management consultant. Like, as an industry, we miss 50% of the calls that come into our properties. If you look at like national multifamily housing counts or some of these national metrics, like we miss 50% of our calls. So what if we just answered those calls? What would that lead to? Right. And like we knew in Birge Held that we were a little better, but we missed 40% of the calls that came in. And so it just, again, what would happen if you started to answer those calls? So we implemented this call center. The call center is 24/7. And what has happened is 50% of the calls that have come into the call center have resulted in tours. Like, not just somebody's interested, but actually touring. And so, I mean, it's just extremely impactful. So then you think about moving control of this automated leasing process into this centralized function where someone can sit anywhere, right? And they can control really leasing and follow up for properties across the entire portfolio from a central location. So there's efficiencies there's like staffing efficiency, right? You just don't need as many people. There's, I think, kind of a specificity of a role. Like one thing I always look at is like just specificity of work, because like property managers have to wear a lot of hats, and a lot of what they do is customer service related, right? It's dealing with residents and helping them. But then every once in a while they have to put their sales hat on and they have to lease an apartment, right? Well, a customer service mentality and a salesperson mentality are two very different things. So I think if you can split those up, allow property managers to spend more time where they're usually more comfortable in that customer service role, and have folks that are really good in that sales role and allow them to focus there, then I think you can be more effective in both areas. And so
it's an incredible model, because then you can scale it as well, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you can scale that, and you can have people in their lane where they're really good, where they shine, and where they want to be anyway, and just become more efficient across numerous properties instead of all those things having to happen at each individual property by itself.
Exactly.
So it makes so much sense. Kent, knowing what you know now, let's say we go back, 2 years ago, what would you tell yourself? What would you have done different, in just getting into the syndication business and scaling your business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What would I do differently? I think that, I would tell myself to get over your limiting beliefs, start your podcast earlier. I could have started a year earlier. Start really getting out there, start providing value and networking and thought leadership. Like I just started a blog, but if I would have done that all 2 years ago, I just imagine where I would be now. Cause I'm starting to have really, really good, like thoughtful discussions with people that reach out to me because they're seeing me out there. And I can't imagine where that would be if I was 2 more years down the path, and I think in doing that, just be able to kind of reach so many more people. I think that would be the biggest thing. Kind of just get started and get over your limiting beliefs, because, it's not that scary out there.
No, that's well said. And it seems like, people think they know that, but man, you're still being held back probably by something, right? Something you believe like that, not putting yourself out there.
For me, it was kind of this perfectionist mentality. I've always been like, I was interviewing somebody the other day, and he's like, yeah, I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I was like, that's a really good, I think it was Bill Keels that said that. And I was like, that's a really good way to put it. Like I totally resonate with that. And so the advice that I give to people now is like, just get started and improve through iteration, because the only way you're going to really get better is by doing it. And like my podcast over the last year has gotten so much better because of reps, right?
Right.
Now that I've done 50 of them, my 50th is better than my first, I'm sure. I listen to them and it's painful, but like the early ones are really painful, and so you got to just improve a little bit every time.
I say it all the time, Ken. It's like, man, your first 20 episodes. Oh, I don't even want to hear them. I mean, mine, not yours, but I mean, mine.
No.
I do not want to hear those first 20 episodes of mine. I feel like I'm still improving just every day. I still have such a long ways to go, but after
absolutely
almost 1,000, I still feel like I have a long ways to go. But if you never get started, you're never going to improve.
No, you never
doubt
do
about it.
Like I'm reading this book right now called Think Again by Adam Grant. And it's all about just like rethinking and reconsidering your beliefs. But there's a quote in it where he interviewed Ray Dalio, and his quote was awesome, because it was something like, it was like, if you can't look back in a year and say, wow, I was really stupid a year ago, then you haven't learned very much in the last year. And I thought that was great. I mean, because like a lot of us, we hold on to those things and we hold on to what we know, and it becomes like part of us. And a lot of the book is about like, just like your beliefs, like really aren't you, and you shouldn't hold on to them in that way for years and years and years. Like you always need to be reevaluating and rethinking, because you're always getting new information. So I thought that was just relevant. That quote was impactful for me.
That is a good quote. All right, Kent, just a few final questions. You have about a minute, per question or so before we run out of time. But how do you prepare for a downturn?
Well, you underwrite conservatively, which everybody says, right?
Which means what?
But what that means for us is, and this really changed for us through COVID, and we're still doing this. I mean, we're putting about double the cash into deals from a reserve and a working capital standpoint, and just in contingency standpoint, like for construction, than we would have pre-COVID. So, we're loading it up on the front end with double the working capital. We're doubling our contingencies for construction because, construction material costs are all over the place and just going up. We are, and we're just adding cushions into, like, for example, going into a property, the roofs may have nothing wrong with them, but we know, like, property we just acquired, the roofs are 25 years old, nothing wrong with them, but we still put a reserve in there because we know they're nearing the end of their life, and we wanted to have that money set aside in case something went wrong. Maybe we never have to use it, but if we do, we've got it set aside for a rainy day. So just, I think being more conservative by putting more cash into the deal. And
is there a way that you, or a metric that you all are calculating a reserve budget?
We really look at it from kind of from a construction standpoint, we look at it kind of an individual line item basis. So it's like, okay, looking at the property, like how old are the hot water heaters? How old the big things we start: roof, parking lot, right? Like, how old are those things? When's the last time they're done? And try to project out and say, okay, likely in the 5 years we're going to own it, there's going to be something that needs to be done. So let's not, like, we've gotten in trouble in the past thinking that we could do those things through operations. And if you go through your rehab thinking that you're going to pull money from operations, you better hope that nothing unexpected comes up so that you have that money to be able to do that work. And so I think it's just much more prudent to raise the money up front, set it aside. I mean, it won't have as much of an impact as you think probably on your returns. And I think ultimately the investors will appreciate your preparedness versus having to do a capital call and say, hey guys, we actually don't have enough money. Surprise, this happened. We didn't anticipate it. We need more of your money. That's not a conversation that I ever want to have.
We had, I'm really big on having an ample reserve budget, probably bigger than most that I know of. And I was scrutinized somewhat on a deal from even some other operators that were investing with us. They're like, Whitney, that even hurts your returns a little bit. Like, why? Just long story short. But the next week, this was last March, and a week later, the country shut down. And guess what? Everybody's thankful.
Absolutely, man.
And we haven't had to use it, thank the Lord. But still, guess what? Everybody's sleeping better.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, like, our focus right now, I mean, we're focused on upside, but like, it's more about downside protection, right? If you can protect the downside, the upside will come, right? We're going to have asset appreciation, and it's going to be there, but like, just make sure the downside's protected, because that's what's really going to get you in trouble. What are a few daily habits that you are disciplined about that have helped you achieve success? Man, meditating, journaling. I try to journal. I'm a better meditator than I am a journaler, but I try to do both of those consistently just to keep my head clear and keep my priorities in line. I think just being very clear on your goals and your priorities is the most important thing, because it's so easy to get bogged down on everything else. It's so easy to just jump into your inbox and just answer emails. You look up 2 hours later and you're like, I just wasted 2 hours answering emails, when you could have actually been doing something, creating something, doing a blog article or a video or something. Right. So just those two things help me be very intentional on my day. And like, my big word for me, 2021, is intentionality, and just making sure that I'm being intentional in everything I'm doing.
What's your best source for meeting new investors right now?
Best source for new investors. Man, honestly, it's through the thought leadership that I've developed through my podcast, through some of the articles I've written. I'm starting to have really, really good conversations, inbound conversations of folks saying, "Hey, we've heard you, or we've heard you on other podcasts, and we'd like to reach out and understand more about what you're doing." I mean, that's been my best source. I do the podcast. I also host a monthly meetup. The monthly meetup has been a great way also to meet investors. It's education first. I'm bringing speakers in, but I think people they kind of get a sense of who you are, and if they resonate with you, then they'll usually want to reach out and learn more.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
My relationships, above and beyond anything else. There's like several key relationships that I've developed through proactive networking that have propelled my career beyond what I could imagine. I'll be honest. I started really investing in real estate in like 2016. It wasn't that long ago, I don't pretend to be an expert in everything, but like partnering with Birge Held has given me such an amazing platform, and kind of backstop to work off of. I get to leverage all of their lessons learned over 12 years, which there are many. And, and I wouldn't have that relationship unless I was proactive and reaching out and making those things happen.
And how do you like to give back?
Well, I'm trying to give back really right now in the same way that so many people have given back to me by helping people that are trying to get started, by, giving time. People message me on LinkedIn all the time, asking questions. I try to take the time to answer them. I try to give 15 or 30 minutes here or there to allow people to, just get on the phone and help them through what they're doing, or help them kind of on a strategy. So right now it's kind of giving freely of my time. I think that's going to continue to evolve into maybe more of a formal process. And then honestly, what I would love to do, which we haven't done, is find some local groups, like some local charities in the markets of each property, and do some partnerships. Like in my consulting days, we used to do that. Like, so we had a project in a city, we would find a local charity to partner with, and we would do like a food drive or something. And I'd really like to model the same thing and try to set something up, because I think it's important to give back and also improve the community that you're working in. Right. So That's where I'd like to get.
No, Kent, that's awesome. I appreciate you giving back in that way and giving back. I mean, you've gone through numerous things. Thankfully, I've had a little extra time for this interview to take a little longer than normal. But also, I wanted to point out one thing that you mentioned just then on the one thing that's contributed to your success, and you said it, and you've been doing this, but I think others need to hear it. Like you said, proactive relationships. Like this is things that you cultivated. Those aren't just like. They didn't just like pop out of nowhere. You spent a lot of time working on those relationships and nurturing, and even like we were talking about the broker relationships, but now, with the company you're partnered with now.
Yeah,
it's incredible to see, what's happened through that. But thank you again for your time, Kent, being on the show. I mean, we've covered so many things, from the types of properties you're all looking for, how you're being successful doing that, the technology side that's helping you to automate and be so much more efficient than normal. Just grateful for you sharing those things and adding that value to us as well. How can the listeners get in touch with you, learn more about you? And I know you have a document that it could be very useful to them as well.
Yeah. So I just created a kind of a new document. It's available on my website. So first of all, my website is kentritter.com. And if you go to kentritter.com and you can sign up, and on my podcast, Ritter on Real Estate, I ask all the guests a similar question, really like, what's one question you should ask your deal sponsor if you only had one question? And so what I've done is, for the first 40 or so guests, aggregated all those. There's kind of 4 themes that really popped up. And so I created a document. It's like, what are the top 4 things that you should look for in a syndicator before you're investing? And so I'll give that to you for free if you go to the website and sign up, and you can join our newsletter there and just check out more of what I got going on. But I hope that adds value to people. And I hope that they can avoid some investing pitfalls, by learning a little bit about what to look for.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.